Okay, good day, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from APSAL, Asia Pacific Center for Environmental Law, National University of Singapore, Faculty of Law. My name is Linda Yanti Sulistiawati. I'm a Senior Research Fellow at APSAL and your moderator for this webinar. APSAL is a research center dedicated to study and document environmental law issues in the region. We engage with many environmental issues, and including environmental courts and tribunals, which our book will be launched later this year in 2024, and climate change litigation, which is also our director's Jolene Lin's book will be launched later this year, and also other contemporary issues in environmental law in the region of Asia Pacific. Please feel free to visit our website to check out our current activities, read our publication, and or engage in our research. This year, in 2024, APSAL is organizing a webinar series on Indonesia's energy, climate, and environmental law. Why Indonesia? Because Indonesia is one of the largest archipelagic states in the world. It hosts the second largest tropical forest, again in the world, which is in turn supports one of the highest numbers of biodiversities. Indonesia is also a prominent state in ASEAN, in the Southeast Asian Nation Organization, and also a very prominent power of growth, I suppose, in this region. So that's why we invited all of you to discuss about Indonesia, specifically Indonesia's energy, climate, and environmental law issues this afternoon. So the main issues selected for APSAL's Indonesian series in 2024 are net zero, GHG emission reduction targets, and just transition. So this first one, we will be discussing specifically on Indonesia's dilemmas in reaching net zero. The next one in our second webinar, our topic would be Indonesia state-owned companies and GHG reduction targets. And it is scheduled for 12th of June, 2024. So please keep your calendar ready. And our third one is a webinar and in-person, a hybrid event. And the topic for that one is preparing just transition in developing world in November 2024. So let's start the webinar for today. Indonesia is dealing with many dilemmas in terms of reaching net zero, but the two prominent ones that we will discuss this afternoon are coal mining, right? Coal mining and deforestation. Indonesia is the second largest coal exporting country in the world. The value of Indonesia's coal export is outstanding. It's reaching $3 billion per month. Indonesia plans to phasing out coal-fired power plants by 2056, but currently more than 50% of the country's electricity still need to rely on coal as its fuel source. And for deforestation, Indonesia has stated its commitment to achieve carbon neutral by 2030, but there's no commitment from the country to stop deforestation yet. Many neighboring countries have also launched complaints in terms of haze pollution from Indonesia's deforestation. But the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in Indonesia have declared that in 2023, 2024, Indonesia has succeeded in decreasing the deforestation rate into 82%. So in order to discuss this very meticulous and complex issues, we have selected for you four very prominent figure in the sector. The first one is Dr. Engineer Widhyawan Prawiraatmadja, Advisory Board of Pertamina Energy Institute and Pertamina University. Pa Wawan, we call him, is a Senior Practitioner Lecturer at the Instut Tecknologi Banding, which is a prominent institute of technology in Indonesia. His past experience include being a special advisor to the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, and also serving as the Governor of Indonesia to the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Welcome, Pak Wawan. Thank you for your time. Our second resource person is Mbak Uli Artasiagian, the campaign manager of Forest and Plantation of WALHI, or Friends of the Earth Indonesia. For those of you who do not know WALHI, WALHI is the biggest and most famous and also one of the first environmental NGOs in Indonesia. Prior to joining WALHI, Mbak Uli was the director of Genesis in Bengkulu in 2018 to 2021. We will hear her perspective from a very prominent environmental NGO here in our webinar this afternoon. Welcome, Mbak Uli. Thank you for joining us. The third one is my senior, my mentor in negotiating international agreement, I suppose. Mbak Kuki Suyahmun, a co-founder and executive director of Indonesia Research Institute for Decarbonization. Mbak Kuki has been working with climate change issues since 1990, focusing on policy analysis, policy advocacy, and international diplomacy. She was the executive director of Yayasan Pelangi Indonesia, and then she became special assistant to the President's Special Envoy for Climate Change until late 2019. Currently, Mbak Kuki is the executive director of IRIT, the Indonesia Research Institute for Decarbonization. Welcome, Mbak Uli. Thank you for your time. And last but not least is Pak Adri Kurnia, who's a lawyer. He's a managing partner in his own law firm, Pak Adri Kurnia and Co. He was the general legal manager of PT Kaltim Primakol, the deputy chairman of Indonesian Coal Mining Association, and the legal committee deputy chairman of Indonesian Mining Association. Welcome, Pak Adri. Thank you for being with us. So before we really start with the webinar, I would like to give you some housekeeping information. The first one is that the Q&A is open throughout our discussion. So if you can look at your the bottom of your screen, you can type your Q&A button and just type in your questions there anytime. And we will try to answer your question after the discussion with all the speakers. And secondly, there will be a questionnaire right after the webinar, and we'd love to collect all of your perception of the webinar in order for us to make the next one a better experience. And the third one, if you like to use the translation function in the Zoom, you may look at the bottom of your screen and look for the show caption button, and you can click the button and then click translation, and then you find the language of your choosing, whether it's English or whether you want to see it in Bahasa Indonesia or other languages, it's there. However, I must inform you that the system is not excellent, so there might be some glitches here and there in terms of the translation. It's from the Zoom app. It's not from us, but it's from the Zoom app. So now I think we're ready to start. Do we have all our panelists here? Okay. All right. So I think before we delve into the dilemma, it might be appropriate for us to get an explanation on the concept of net zero. Mbak Kuki, would you kindly enlighten us with the concept of net zero?
All right. Thank you, Melinda. And good afternoon, everybody. So I think if we are talking about net zero, it is basically a condition where, let's say, greenhouse gases, in this case, that emitted can all be absorbed and also stored by sink. So sink is the one that basically absorbing and storing the gases, and the sink itself can be nature-based or it can also be technology based. So if we are talking about the term, the right term is usually net zero emission. So this is ideally includes all the greenhouse gases, but we can sometimes we also heard about this carbon neutrality, which basically only focusing on carbon based gases. But to allow such condition, the net zero, then the emission needs to be limited to as little as possible, while on
Mm,
the other hand the sink itself need to be increased so that we can have everything absorbed, and
mm,
the net zero itself need to be made in multi-sectoral approaches because there are some sector or activities that hard to abate. We cannot, maybe it's too expensive to unit like high tech for reducing the emission. So other sectors that basically has a great potential to reduce emission or to absorb, then it can help. So if we are talking about it, then that's the net zero emission is basically the situation where all the emission can be absorbed and stored.
okay. So it's not really not emitting anything, but it's more like a give and take type of situation, right? Within,
True.
yeah, within the country itself.
Yeah.
So,
Because
Pak
it's
Waw,
net, right?
sorry, Mbak Cookie, go ahead.
Sorry, I mean, like, because we have net in there. It's not
Yeah.
zero emission, but it's net zero.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why. Yeah.
So is this, Pak Wawan, is this an acceptable concept in Indonesia energy sector, Pak?
Sorry, I wasn't unmute myself. So again, the question, thank you, whether this is a concept. Well, I think Indonesia legally binding, right, for this. Not only that we signed the Paris Agreement, but it's already rectified, and it has become a law. So I think whether anyone everybody in Indonesia will have to know it. And then in terms of the government, of course, they have already pledged that
Mm.
they will achieve this objective by 2060.
Okay, so you think it is an achievable target,
I don't know. I
like on
cannot talk about.
paper?
Well, I mean, there's some works on this, and
Mm-hmm.
then about modeling exercise, right? I mean, depends on how you make the assumptions, and then when the assumptions needs to get you to a net zero equation by a
Mm-hmm.
certain time. Of course, now we do it today, and then I don't know how many of us are going to live by 2060. So it's easy for somebody to commit, and perhaps they don't know how to exactly doing it. It's uncharted territory,
Ah,
Linda. So I guess I think the main thing for Indonesia is has to rely on the low carbon development. Yeah, I think that would be the main thing that we should be aiming to. And then while we move along, we are going
mm-hmm.
to start making us aware in terms of if we need to get to net zero emission by 2060, what does
Mm-hmm.
it take and how much it's going to cost us and who's going to pay for it?
Okay. Okay, thank you, Pak Wawan and Mbak Kuki. So now I will ask Mbak Uli. Do you agree that there are two main dilemmas in reaching net zero, Mbak? Do you think like deforestation and coal mining are biggest two in terms of reaching the concept of net zero for the country?
Yeah, thank you, Mbak. We actually we do not agree that the use of coal and deforestation is considered a dilemma. A dilemma means that we have to choose between two equally unpleasant possibility. In this case, continuing to exploit coal, but having to burn deforestation, or stopping deforestation but having to lose profit from export. We have a third option to stop releasing fossil emissions by stopping releasing coal and building electricity sources that are more democratic, fair, and by natural coincidence. For example, micro hydro uses river water source from a good forest, can be built on a small scale with community independence, provide that forest cover is well maintained. However, unfortunately, this great potential has not been maximized properly by the government. Yeah, I try to look at it from the sides of justice or society and environmental designs. The first, Indonesia is not a country that has a large coal reserves in the world. So choosing to commodify coal or electricity by priority export is an unfair choice. The fact is that in many areas where coal has been dismantled, the environment has been damaged, and people have been displaced. They have to buy electricity at a high price. Otherwise, that will not be able to directly enjoy the electricity that results from their living space being confiscated and damaged. Meanwhile, when there is an environmental impact from coal exploitation, they have to bear a greater impact. The second, in a broader context, the dismantling of underground fossil from coal extraction causes the loss of forest and biodiversity and causes the climate crisis. Everyone will bear the impact of the climate crisis, but the poor, farmer, fishermen, and other vulnerable groups will bear a heavier burden. For example, coffee and clove farmer accompanied by Walhi explained that currently their coffee is experiencing an decline in quality and quantity. While clove farmer in North Maluku have no longer had fruit in the last 5 years. In hot temperature situation, example, urban poor people who live in cramped houses with large family members without air condition or fans will suffer more than middle class people or urban rich people whose large houses are equipped with air conditioning. Even hydrometeorological disaster examples such as floods and landslides, which have continued to increase in the last 10 years, have brought a very bad situation to society, especially women, right? Because during flood or landslides, for example, they have difficulty accessing clean water to clean the reproductive organs. When the situation seems to show that we are the ones who make ourselves completely dependent on fossil coal energy and closes ourselves off from developing other potential that are more democratic, fire sovereign and in harmony with natural conditions. And in our opinion, like Walhi, the net zero concept, is also still being debatable because the net zero places a balance where the emission relates cannot be greater to or mass balancing with absorbed. This concept then becomes the basis for the idea of carbon offset and biodiversity offset, right? Which do not answer our big problem, namely the release of a large
Okay.
amount of emission, and prologue the story on conflict in society. In the name of carbon balance, one area can continue to be destroyed, but the forests on other areas are converged to balance it.
Okay.
While the conservation carried out expels indigenous people and local community from their territory. So who does the benefit from this balancing transaction belong to?
Okay.
Maybe this is a perspective while he
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
environmental and affair.
Yeah. Thank you, Mauli. So while he is thinking that the coal and deforestations are not dilemma, that the country should be able to just pick one or the third way that is not harming the environment and not putting the poorest of the poor into a cliff that they cannot escape. I suppose that's the gist of Mauli's opinion. Pak Adri, can I pick on you now? Pick your brain. So when you hear about this as a lawyer in the energy sector, do you agree with the perception of Mauli in this case of while he's as an NGO perception?
I'm sorry if like some part of Mauli's speech I didn't get it clearly, but I think that I cannot say it's I don't disagree with what Maulis was saying before, but the thing is in the industry, because the coal still is major power generator in Indonesia, it accounts for 85% of all the electricity power in Indonesia, and it's only 15% of out of 84 gigawatts in Indonesia from renewable energy. So you can see that how dependent we're on coal is. And but the thing is, what I'm gonna say, the dilemma is actually like whether we want to dismantle all of our coal-fired power plant and replace it with greener or renewable energy. But the thing is, the renewable energy has not been ready yet to replace those around 65 gigawatts from where we have to source it. So there is no other choice, I think, for Indonesia except to a certain point keep continuing with this coal consumptions, and then with all the impacts that it brings to the environment, because like this is things that we can like most of the countries that are using coal as its power generator cannot overcome yet. Let's say we pick a point where China, it just built a new around like 100 gigawatts new coal-fired power plant to satisfy its industry consumptions. And if we compare it to Indonesia, we actually like start really hard in the last few years, and then the government also tried to accelerate investment in geothermal in for the sake of replacing the coal-fired power plant in Indonesia. But the thing is, the pace of those transitions cannot match the needs of Indonesia for
Okay.
replacing coal as its main, and it's actually like its ultimate power generator.
Okay.
So like
Okay. Yeah. Thank you,
uh
Adri. I think what you like to highlight here is the coal dependency, right?
yes.
For Indonesian power specifically. So let's focus on that, and I would like to ask Pak Wawan on this. Pak Wawan, you are an advisor to PLN and also an advisor to Pertamina. PLN is the only utility company in Indonesia, and Pertamina is, I think, the only state-owned company who is dealing with oil and gas. What do you think about this, Pak?
Well, I think companies actually have their fiduciary duties, right? I mean, in terms of what they're being founded for. I guess in the case of PLN, one of the major responsibility is to make sure that the lights is on in each and every household that
It's
is
true. Yeah.
subscribed.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the what you call it, energy security would probably one of the most important thing for PLN. And we know in energy, we call it energy trilemma, right? I mean, the dilemma is not only about one or the other, but this is about three things, right? You have to have the access, then you have to take care of the environment, and the third one is it needs to be affordable. And it's very difficult to meet all those criteria. And I think that is where the dilemma comes from. And that is from the company's perspective, right? Pertamina deals with oil and gas. And as long as the demand for oil and gas is there, they are obligated to fulfill the demand, no matter what. Wherever it is in Indonesia. Of course, Pertamina itself is trying to do a lot of things. For example, when they do have carbon dioxide in their field, they will probably need to take care of that by capturing it and then put it back into under the ground. And then hopefully that
CCS.
practice, that is a practice that could actually help their production as well, right? For enhanced oil or gas recovery, and therefore it brings a value. Second, Pertamina needs to also be ready because we produce oil since, I know, more than 100 years ago. We have depleted wells, aquifer, that we can use to store this storage, as Cookie mentioned earlier. So anyone who would like to use these aquifers that is in Indonesia territory, if the economic is there and they are in need of doing that, I think Pertamina will have to be ready also to have all the capacity and capability to do so, because it's the similar skills that they have on explorations, right? So I think it would be a very different way of doing things, Linda, despite what they have to their obligation. For example, in the case of PLN do what they can, right, to make sure it's already accepted that they cannot really no longer build new coal power plants, so they have to live with that. And then they have to restore to other means of having base load power plants, which if we want to use the renewable energy, you resort to hydro and geothermal. But then if you build a coal power plant, it's easy to bring just one unit or 100 or 1,000 megawatt, 1 gigawatt. It's not always easy to make 1 gigawatt of hydro or geothermal, and it will take longer and it's probably much more costlier. So how is going to, now that I know it's less ideal, right? But in the objective of still making sure that the electricity need to be there, PLN may have to resort to use of natural gas instead. So gas is, yes, still a fossil fuel, right? But gas is viewed in this particular instance as a carbon avoidance of not using coal. So you can see the different and doing things, but really still confined with many of the constraint, right?
Yeah.
That is really faced by these companies.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Pawawan. So, Mauli, you've heard Pawawan's perception on Pertamina and also PLN, basically the two biggest fossil fuel related state-owned company in Indonesia. What do you think about this, Mauli?
Yeah, I want maybe specific to about the power plant, coal power plant. Yeah, in our opinion, the decision to stop building new coal power plant must be support and indeed implemented properly.
Mm,
Utilizing old coal power plant and transitioning immediately is a necessity, not an option.
mm,
However, the transition we means it strengthening energy sources that not only cause minimal environmental damage but are fair, democratic, and not built on debt.
mm,
For Walhi, this principle is more important to ensure the choosing what power plant to build. Apart from that, in our opinion, maybe the carbon tax from fossil generator must be implemented immediately
mm.
and at a high rate, yeah,
Yeah.
high rate, so that all environmental costs
Yes,
are
agree.
included in the calculation of the cost of all types of generator.
Yeah.
Because up to now, fired power plant have been considered cheap because they do not calculate the costs of recovering environmental loads or external costs.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mauli. So yeah, so I agree. The carbon tax in Indonesia, like currently, is still pegged in the minimum, in the most minimum price. That is very very low, the second lowest in the world, like 2,000 rupiah per ton, which is, I don't know, very 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 low. But Pa Adri, I would like to ask you whether there are cases and, and, and and clients in the energy sector that are also hinging upon coal. Is this like do they m- do we see such movement in terms of people bringing or company bringing their cases to court, to have to bring justice about their company in regard to their coal mine or something like that? Is that is that a thing that we see now often, or not yet?
Um, from my experience, Prof. Linda, it's yeah, a lot of mining company are taken into court, but not specifically for
Mm,
um, the emissions or that they produce during the mining processing or their mining activity. It's more because of more conventional legal disputes such as dispute on land and dispute
uh,
on maybe business to business, but specifically
okay.
in for the sake of bringing coal mining company because they are the source of pollutions and producing coal, which is very one of the major contributor for the greenhouse gases.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't up until now. I haven't had experience on that, and I don't think that it's also if I'm if I may say maybe zero case
Mm,
if it's not very rare in the I haven't heard of it. So
okay. Well, there was an old case in Samarinda. I don't know if you heard about it. The Samarinda Menggugat. I think it's in 2017, but it's not specifically just on coal, but all mining activities
Yes, that's
around Samarinda. Yeah,
agree. That's
yeah,
because like they destroy some of the maybe Hakulite or indigenous residences, Dayak people there, and polluting the rivers near Mahakam rivers and other. But specifically
yeah.
because of
Specifically on
the
emission,
greenhouse,
not yet.
I haven't heard of.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Padri. So, Mbak Kuki, how does dependency on coal hinders Indonesia ability in reaching net zero? Theoretically, can it be done? Can net zero be done by Indonesia, even though we are still having high dependency on coal?
Yeah, I think talking about theoretically, sure, it still can be done. No, I mean, like, the issue here is, for me, what is more important is not to have like instant and abrupt changes, right? Because, for example, if we are talking about, let's say, phasing out coal, good,
yeah.
but no one can do it like in one night kind of thing. It has to be planned. It has to be. We need to have a comprehensive planning and strategies also on how to replace the energy or the electricity that usually generated by coal. As
Mhm.
Mas Wawan explained earlier, we are not only talking about the technology for let's say generating
Mhm.
the electricity itself, but we are also talking about how to transmit all the energy and distribute it to households, to industries, to whoever the consumers. So I don't think that we can just, if I can say, like, as simple as saying like, yes, we can do it and we have to do it like in 5 years time or something like that. It's not possible. And I think we've seen also, even all developed countries all over the world, even they
Mhm.
have more, let's say, renewable energy already in their energy mix. They already have much better and reliable transmission system that can, how do you call it, can service the variety or variable renewable energy. Still, they don't want to just stop using their coal-fired power plant, because the issue is who will bear the economic burden, such
Mm.
as sunk cost of the coal-fired power plant assets, for example.
Yeah.
And another issue, I think, theoretically, of course, because you asked me about theoretically, but with a good planning and strategy, and this cannot just be in the energy system, right?
yeah.
We have to have, like Pawawan already mentioned about this low carbon development, for example, initiative, right? So it has to be comprehensive multi-sectors as well, and cannot be isolated, because like, it's not only talking about let's say taking out coal from the system, but also talking about what to replace it. And on the other hand, also, for example, we are talking about, in this case, electricity, right? So
Yeah.
we have consumers that using or basically consuming electricity. We need also to work with them so that we can use the electricity in a more, in much wiser way, so that the electricity can also be, in a way, how do you call it, substitute from coal to other resources that might not be able, as Pawawan mentioned earlier, to supply as much and as stable energy as what has been so far surfaced by coal. So for me, what is more important is to see it, to have a good planning and strategy,
Mhm.
and not only, not in silo, but it's all sectors need to be seen together in a big picture.
Okay, thank you, Makuki. What do you think, Pak Wawan? Is this theoretical opinion or point of view from Makuki is doable in Indonesia's energy sector? So planning and not in silo and togetherness.
Well, I think that has always been the elusive things to happen, right, in Indonesia, as we all know it. But I think, nonetheless, I think people do try, right? I think the Ministry of Forestry and Environment has
Yeah.
been trying to make sure that all the sectors are doing what they're supposed to do. They're giving targets. They're doing the monitoring. They asked to put a cap on the emission to ensure that it's going to be reduced, and therefore there is a demand for carbon. So, because without the demand for carbon, there is no price on carbon, right? So we have, you may see that from the IDX, from the exchange, Indonesia exchange, there's not much of trading of the
Yeah.
carbon, simply because there's no demand. I think I would agree that this type needs some incentives and disincentives, right?
Yeah.
We still have many paradoxical things happening in our country. For example, we would like to do more about renewable energy, but then fossil fuels are still subsidized. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't quite make sense, right? But
Yeah.
but if you are the ones who lead Indonesia, if you were the president, for example, would you actually abolish the fuel subsidy right now, right away? I think you certainly wouldn't won the election, right? By doing so. So I think that would be the dilemma. The real dilemma is that, right? I think, and then I guess yes, we could. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's we just have to also be aware that the affordability issue is not so much about the consumer. Yes, consumer has been spoiled by the government policy, right?
Yeah.
But towards the end, I don't know whether the government can continue subsidizing this at a very big amount without sacrificing too much on other more important things to finance. For example,
Yeah.
education, health services, infrastructure.
Environment.
While this policy of, for example, subsidizing fossil fuels is not. I mean, Bauli wants to have a very high tax on this. Well, subsidy is negative tax, as we all know it, right? So that one has to go first before we actually can put any tax on this fossil fuel. So I think it's still a long way to go, but it doesn't mean it cannot be done, like Cookie mentioned. You just need to realize, and then once the government and the parliament's members think that this is the things that needs to be done, right? Shifting the subsidy from commodity to targeted subsidy to the people, for example, because that is mandated by the law, by the constitution, basically, right? So I guess for that matter, I would think that this could be done, but I think at the current way of how the people get elected, it's still very hard to do it.
Okay. So I guess because our time is really short now and we have some questions, I would like to go to questions. And the first one is, from
I already
Weedy.
answered.
Oh, you answered
few.
one question. Oh, you already answered some question.
Answered
Wow.
one questions.
Oh, thank you, Pawan. But this is from Weedy from UGM. He's asking about the geothermal energy. If we look at the Indonesia geothermal law, that geothermal operation can be carried out in conservation forest areas. Can this pose a risk to biodiversity in the future? Well, not in the future, in the current time also, I suppose. And second one is it not possible to make maximum effort to replace non-renewable energy into renewable energy up to the same level of electrical energy output, considering Indonesia has submitted its NDC to the UNFCCC? And specifically, this question is for Pertamina, so probably to you, Pak Wawan.
Okay, NDC, we have no problem, right? Kuki and Bu Uli even can attest that meeting the NDC by 2030 will be no problem. Okay, so the issue would be whether we can achieve net zero emission in 2060, right? Okay. Now, in terms of renewable, as I mentioned, there are some there are technical constraint, and there's also cost constraint. On the technical issues, even geothermal, which is certain people might think geothermal shouldn't be there in the first place, but I'm a proponent of geothermal. Geothermal is good. The energy will be there for very long time. I mean, we have like Kamojang were already, I don't know how many years now, right? I mean, in operations, 50 years perhaps, right? So I guess we already proved that geothermal can safely and contributing to the energy sector, except that you cannot really get the scale of geothermal to replace coal. The largest one unit of power plant of geothermal in Indonesia is Sarula. It's probably only 300 something megawatts, right? It's far cry from 1 unit of coal power plant at 1 gigawatt at one go.
So not comparable yet, not ready
then,
yet.
Yeah, not yet. It's very difficult. The only way that you could can replace coal at the same big volume like that is as nuclear. Now, is it nuclear okay or not okay?
Yeah. True.
I mean, those are the I mean, it's easy to, you know, Indonesia needs to grow. Indonesia is still a developing country. Comparing to Singapore, we are nothing. I mean, look at our GDP per capita income and everything. I mean, any leaders of Indonesia will actually going to focus on making sure Indonesia is going to become a developed country first, and then we are aspiring to be a developed country by 2045. And that means the economy needs to grow. And if you need the economy to grow, you need energy. And then if there's not any much of an option to do so, should we don't grow? I mean, it's the dilemma that we face for sure. I mean, you can ask if you want to stand still or you are not growing, then and that would be, I think it's not an option.
Okay. The next question, I think it's for Uli or Pak Adri. How can local stakeholders be involved in the transition toward a net zero economy in Indonesia? And how can their perspective be integrated into policy making decisions? I think we lost Mbak Uli. Is she gone? Okay, then this is for Pak Adri then. What do you think?
This is a very tough question because you know, like it's not don't talk about the local government, but even the central government has a headache when they're dealing with how to deal with this problem. And I think maybe one of the ways that local government or central government can do is by trying to push coal mining companies when they're doing their operation, they gotta use equipment that is more environmentally friendly and issued less carbon footprint. For example, what I heard that is some big major mining companies, they're changing their fuel combustion engine with electric vehicles. But then the problem is that we come back again to square one, where if you use a lot of electric vehicles and then you need more power. Meanwhile, we're not sufficiently have renewable energy to generate power. But at least I think from a policy point of view, we can enforce that, and we can make the local government more involved by having more supervision or having more power to regulate for mining company, for example, using greener um, method of carrying their mine operations. One of the things that using electric vehicles, and then more, using more environmentally friendly equipment, and then try to reduce their carbon footprint. Even though I think that it's gonna be very, it not give a very substantial reduction in the carbon footprints, but it's at least by bringing the local government or bringing good policy and impose it to mining companies, it will speed up and accelerate the transition phase where mining companies until until coal, for example, can be replaced with more or greener or sustainable power.
Okay. Well, I would like to add also local stakeholders should be involved in public participation in any level, from the village level into the community level into the kecamatan, kabupaten, municipalities, cities, and province. So I think those layering should work, like not trickle down from the top, but bottom up in a way. And secondly, I think the local stakeholders should be uh, 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 help, like raise their awareness also. I think because the concept itself of energy, conserving energy, going to renewable energy, and etc. It's somehow foreign to Indonesians in the local level, in the grassroots level, and they are the one who are impacted most by all this, climate change and all the worst of the worst that goes to the poor of the poor. So I think, I think that's the way to go, is to include them in every step of decision making. So that's why you have to elect
but
people
if
who are in good conscience, I would say.
but if I may add, Linda, because I resided and I was living for 2 years in mine site in Sanggara in East Kutai in East Kalimantan, and go through all of the process, and also involved in, and giving explanation about what we're doing. And in fact, as that's the thing that we have to work together, that we need to educate them
Yeah.
how they also need to consider and need to realize that they also need more environmentally friendly business activities surrounded them. And from what I saw and from my experience living there about 2 years, that actually it's more like they don't actually I would say care that whether this is environmentally friendly, because most of them are thinking about how to
Yeah, the
satisfy and
awareness,
fulfill
yeah,
the
the
basic needs
awareness is very
of them.
lacking. Yeah, they don't, yeah, they
So
can't,
if
yeah.
if you ask about the public participations, also society involvement in the policy making or supervisions of mining company, actually like already have that rights, but in fact maybe the the consciousness of having a good environment is good for them, just not really realized by them. That I was
Okay.
gonna say.
Okay. Okay, next question is for Mbak Kuki. It's how does financial institutions or Indonesian banks could expedite in terms of their resources or capabilities the net zero transition, not only in the energy sector but also in multi-sectoral approach. It's from
Yeah, I think
Josh. Yeah.
yeah, it's a tough one though. But at least the OJK, it's a financial supervisor, right? Oversighting committee, is it? I always confuse with the English translation of it. But anyway, OJK already issued this how do you call it, the sustainability report. Like every financial institutions, they need to report on the sustainability of their business, which in a way also include that they have to be in a way, how do you call it, shifting from the unsustainable business to support a more sustainable one. So I think this is one way. It's kind of top down from the regulation, but I think this is one way that can push the financial institution and banks to move towards more sustainable development in supporting any activities. The second one is also that I think we also need, to be honest, we don't have enough resources, financial resources in the country, right?
Mm.
So what we need is, in fact, to have, let's say, international cooperation, foreign investment, and all those things. Because at the end of the day, what we are talking here, the net zero emission, the net zero transition is for everyone. It's for the global community. It's not only for Indonesia. And I think it's fair enough to have, those entities, especially the public entities from outside the country, to support Indonesia, to give like maybe cheap money for Indonesia, so that the Indonesian can shifting toward the sustainable and net zero transition. Because I mean, like, you're gonna have this just energy transition session later on, right? It is also something that need to be unpacked, I think, on
Yeah. Yeah,
what
on
is it
itself.
and
Yeah.
how such transition can happen while we, as Pak Wawan mentioned earlier, we still can develop ourselves economically. So I think that's how this can be done.
Yeah.
Melinda.
Thank you, Mbak Kuki. So that's the answer, Josh. So we have 3 questions. I'm going to put them together because I think all of them are for Pak Wawan. It's from Irdina Rainer and Pak Dalyono. Pak Wawan, what are the consideration for Indonesian electricity to include the environmental and social into power purchase agreement of renewable energy project? Will it be feasible or idealistic to do so?
I think it should be included. It should be included. So no question. So I guess
theoretically, yes, very much.
no, I
Yeah.
mean, even for example, if you can actually, I mean, PLN will also perhaps ask if there is something related to carbon reduction effort with that. I mean, they will probably like to have it. The credit goes to PLN, and then of course, then the IPP will say that in that case, I need to get more compensations, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that kind
Which
of
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it should be
What
that way.
criteria should renewable technology or greener alternative to coal power plants fulfill to sufficiently take over coal-powered energy? This is from Rainer. And then the third one, I think it's more like very scientific. As SF6 gas is not good for environment, 1 kg of SF6 is equal to 23 tons of CO2. Would Pertamina stop using SF6?
I think eventually everybody will have to stop, right? Like all the CFCs is like in our air conditions in the past, we stopped using any of those Freon, for example. these things with also similar. It's not only about Pertamina. Pertamina is not producing this kind of gas, so somebody else is producing it, right? So, but then if there is no what you call it, if the government or the regulation still allowing that to be sold, and then people resort to the most economical options, unfortunately, that would be the nature of supply and demand. So I think at some point in time, I think the government will have to take the use of lead in gasoline is at the end of the day is the government who take it out, that it's not possible to have leaded gasoline anymore. I mean, similar to this. So what else is the question?
What criteria should renewable energy? Should renewable technologies fulfill to sufficiently take over coal power?
Yeah. I think first, of course, what we have now that is getting cheaper and cheaper is the solar and wind, right? Unfortunately, they are intermittent. So to get them to be a base load, to be comparable to coal, that means you need to install the battery. Unfortunately, it's prohibitively expensive. So that is still not the answer right now. But I think if we keep continuing finding the technology to make the battery cheaper, and the hydrogen also technology could be, and of course, I mean, that's related to the previous question about CCS, right? I mean, it's not the fossil fuels that is the problem, right? It is the CO2 emission. So if we can use the fossil fuels and not having the CO2 emissions, such as by using CCS technology, then that's solved. But
but also environmental degradation from
but
from the extraction process. But
the problem is, well, I think all economic activities has some environmental impact. We breathe and exhale CO2. Come on.
we go back to the dilemma again. I think okay, there's still one more question. I think this is the last question. And I give it to whomever that would like to answer this question. I think this is from my student, Dina, again. How do you see the feasibility of Indonesia to consider the decentralized electricity with knowing the empowerment of local leaders in Kabupaten of Regency? Decentralized electricity.
I think off-grid is possible, but I think it's also the country may think that it's responsibility. We don't know, right? I mean, local community may have a better way of solving things on their own. I mean, PLN may take all the wiring from far away to a very remote area. It's going to be very costly. But if the local community come up with something, I don't know, with small hydro and anything like that, and then have somebody actually finance it there, why not? I mean, we've had a lot of examples by, for example, an organization called IBK, Trimumpuni. I mean, they had a lot of experience in doing that. So it should be possible.
Okay.
I don't know whether I don't know whether I get it clearly, but the question is whether electricity can be decentralized. That what it's what is meant, like giving power to local government, or I don't know where the question goes. But if what is happening in, for example, in if you see in California in the US, solar city. So actually, like solar city is owned by Elon Musk. So they're having this kind of roof that can absorb the solar power and then store it in battery, and then Tesla then will store in their battery, and the excess of this electricity can be sold to the utility companies. The thing is, some of these things try to be implemented in Indonesia, but the obstacle is that a PLN cannot buy the excess power just like that, because there are some process that which is very long and quite tough as well for
Yeah.
doing this. So if we do, actually, this is a very good question, because in the US they're doing this and this is quite work. But in Indonesia, the bureaucratic and the process that and the power that PLN has to buy or this or to let this kind of scheme implement in Indonesia is, I think, not really what I would say, because PLN is the sole distributor of electricity in Indonesia and also the sole purchaser of electricity or power generated through PPA. Meanwhile, in the US, you can have not only one or single or sole distributor or buyer, and the legal scheme for the power distribution in the US is more open. But in here in Indonesia, we almost can count, like there are only some companies that can do distribution power like PLN,
Yeah.
like Cikarang, Listrindo. But that's one of the solution, I believe, because if every house that they can, like have a solar, I hope that's what it meant with decentralized. So every house can have their own like solar panel and generate their electricity by their own. I think it will reduce the consumption of coal for sure, because 85% of electricity generated by PLN from coal, and it's a greener for sure. And in some extent, it's very economical, not only
Okay.
for government, because they don't have to subsidize the electricity anymore, but also because the excess power actually can be sold to the national grid, and it actually can help PLN to distribute this excess power to the other area that lack our
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
shortage
But
of coal.
the thing is the legal framework is not ready, I suppose,
Exactly.
to
Well,
give infrastructure for
they
all of
he
this
tried in
very good.
1990s, right? Or early 2000s,
2000, yeah.
to
Yeah.
have to have change the law for electricity, and unfortunately, it was annulled by the Constitutional Court. It
Yeah.
was deemed
Yeah. It's
unconstitutional.
unconstitutional. Yeah. Okay. So we are in the end of our time. We're actually already over time by 11 minutes. I'm very grateful to all the speakers, Pak Wawan, Mbak Kuki, Pak Adri, and Mbak Uli, who's already left. Please, all of you also join me in giving great thanks and applause to all the speakers, despite of us being in Ramadan and still are very high spirited and still would love to debate with us for the next 2 more days, but we don't have 2 more days. But we have another webinar in June that we will put on our website, and all of you are invited once you registered. Unluckily for us, Pawawan will be doing his Hajj at that moment, so all the best of luck for you, Pa. And
you.
for all the participants, thank you for joining us for this webinar. The QR code will be ready soon for you to scan our questionnaire, and please fill in our questionnaires. And thank you so much for all the participants and all the speakers. And we'll see you again in our next webinar soon. Good afternoon for everybody. Bye-bye and stay healthy.